Hello and welcome to the first Truth, Health, Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Alan Burton, and I'm going to give you a brief introduction about what this podcast is all about. This podcast will focus on natural health and healing, truth-seeking, consciousness, and empowerment. I and my guests will be shining a light on these areas and always bringing the focus back to the solution to empower you, the audience, with information and perspectives to help your life. I'm doing this for anyone who wishes to heal naturally, to thrive physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. For people who wish to find a more sustainable way of living in harmony with each other and the planet. For those who wish to explore the great mysteries from human origins to the nature of consciousness. And anyone who wants to really know what's going on in the world and most importantly, what we can do about it. This podcast will be for anyone who wants to be empowered to live a life of authenticity, purpose, and fulfillment, a life beyond their current limitations, a life that does more than just earn money to pay the bills, one that will help humanity and the planet for now and generations to come. That's the pre-prepared mission statement to give you some idea of what this is about, but I'm going to flesh it out now. So, firstly, myself, my name is Alan Burton. I live in Cheshire, just south of Manchester in the UK. My history and why I'm doing this, really, I've been listening to podcasts and YouTube interviews, lectures, all sorts of things for, I think, 11 years. I think it was 2007 I discovered YouTube, and that was a game changer for me. That was a big life-changing moment. I started listening to all these people who weren't getting airtime on mainstream media and all the information that wasn't getting huge airtime on mainstream media. And it was changing my worldview. Meanwhile, this came towards the end of a long period of chronic illness. So really from the age of 21, so I'm looking, really since 1995, 96, I think it was 96, yeah, since 1996 until 2010, I really struggled with chronic illness, skin problems, insomnia, and I was a walking pharmacy cabinet. So my health wasn't good. I'd been in and out of work. I'd been struggling. And so around 2007, I discovered YouTube. B, I started to really try and change my life. I came off all pharmaceuticals. I started to detox naturally. I got in touch with a naturopath locally and was really on a mission to try and overcome this illness that conventional medicine had not been able to help. And in hindsight, I think perhaps contributed very much to. So, yeah, I would spend a lot of time in the kitchen preparing food because now I was going to be healthy. I was going to buy organic food, prepare it from first principles. And that meant spending a lot of time chopping, washing, cooking, all that kind of stuff in the kitchen while I was listening usually to YouTube. It started with Coast to Coast Radio, or I'd look up something. I'd think, who was that guy? I remember reading these fascinating books when I was younger. Who was it? And then I remember, oh yeah, Graham Hancock, that was the name. And then one thing would lead to another, and I'd start learning more about ancient civilizations, about the truth of consciousness. I used to think we were just meat machines, that our consciousness was an epiphenomenon of brain activity. And then I realized, hang on, there's all this evidence for near-death experiences. Pim van Lommel has done all this research, and then I find there's all this evidence for reincarnation, and it's all been researched by Ian Stevenson, and then I find there's evidence for psychic phenomena, and that the Global Consciousness Project is a thing, and and they've done incredible work, and that Rupert Sheldrake's been doing experiments, and that Dean Radin has been doing experiments, and this started to change my worldview. I'd always felt intuitively quite spiritual, but I just denied it all because science says this is all there is. And yeah, so to find, well, actually human civilization and technology is older and very different to what we've been told. Actually, consciousness is a very different thing to what we've been told, and therefore what we are might be very different to what we've been told. And then changing my entire worldview around what constitutes healthy eating, what constitutes medicine, how we attain, achieve, and maintain our health. In recent years, on this path, I've taken all sorts of wrong turns, been given all sorts of advice that I now consider to be completely wrong, to be honest. And in recent years, I've moved very strongly along the whole food, plant-based path. People like Dr. Michael Greger, Dr. Neil Barnard, Dr. Michael Esselstyn, they've all been. T. Colin Campbell, I actually did his course last year in plant-based nutrition from Cornell University. So I've learned an awful lot about how to be healthy. Meanwhile, there were people close to me in my own life who had anxiety issues, who'd suffered trauma in their life, might have had addiction issues, and that, along with looking at ancient civilizations through Graham Hancock, led me to explore sacred plant medicines as well. And I've seen people make incredible progress using sacred plant medicines and other sacred medicines such as Kambo. And over the last year and a half, 2 years, I met people in the Manchester area and the surrounding areas who are doing similar work. They're working with energy, they're working with consciousness, they're working with ancient medicines. And that's been a fascinating journey for me. And this podcast really is for anyone who is interested in any of these subjects, who wants to be the healthiest that they can be, who wants to build a life that is healthier for the planet, is better for themselves, better for the planet, is aligned with their heart, their passions, their principles. It's not going to be contributing to the destruction of the world and the growing inequality. People who are interested in health and healing from all perspectives, who want to eat the best way that they can, food that's been grown in a way that's the most sustainable for the environment. And people who are interested in the topics of consciousness and of energy and of truth-seeking. What is our real history? What is the evidence? What's really going on in the world today? So I'm hoping that I can help people explore those issues, not me personally, but through my guests. Initially, most of those guests will come from people that I know, so mostly people locally. But as time goes by, I want to bring in guests further afield, perhaps names you might know, more well-known people. And in doing so, I hope to bring together a whole load of fascinating perspectives of people who've lived very different lives with very different experiences, who can bring some new knowledge, new perspectives to the table. And always, when looking at this, I don't just want to say, okay, what's going on in the world? We'll find a truth seeker who tells you, oh yeah, the banking system is terrible and we're destroying the environment, that kind of thing. What I want to know and what I want to share with my audience is, what can we do about it? What can we do individually and collectively to make things better? Obviously, we can't change things overnight, but we can all be a drop in the bucket that eventually fills it up. We can all do something. It goes from the microcosm to the macrocosm. So yeah, my passion is to explore these subjects from my own interest, and then to share it with the world so other people can see and hear these things and be stimulated by this, and also to just keep on learning, to keep on sharing, to always be putting out that angle of what can we do about it. I've got a kind of little bit of a template here, which is provided by, I'm actually doing a course to help me with this podcast, just to really overcome the resistance that, I've been dreaming about this for 11 years and I've not done it. So following this template here, I've got these questions here. Why am I doing this podcast? I think I've explained that. Who is it for? I think I've kind of explained that. Anyone interested in these great questions. It's for anyone who wishes to heal naturally, to thrive physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, for people who wish to find a more sustainable way of living in harmony with each other and the planet, for those who wish to explore the great mysteries from human origins to the nature of consciousness, anyone who wants to know what's really going on in the world, and most importantly, what we can do about it. This podcast will be for anyone who wants to be empowered to live a life of authenticity, purpose, and fulfillment, a life beyond their current limitations, a life that does more than just earn money to pay the bills, one that will help humanity and the planet for now and for generations to come. So that kind of sums up who it's for. I wrote that before. What was the biggest challenge in creating this podcast or in the podcast topic, and how did I overcome it? I think the biggest challenge initially was the health issue. The health issue pretty much paralyzed my life from the age of around 21. So it was most of my adult life. So I was never able to pursue a career. I was, for the first so many years, was in and out of work. Every night was horrible. I'd be itching from head to toe. Every millimeter of my body would be on fire all night, every night. There'd be blood and skin everywhere every morning. And I couldn't sleep for 14 years, and that wasn't much of a life. And that was a difficulty. That was a big challenge, but it was also an absolute blessing, because it's opened my eyes to the pharmaceutical industry. It's opened my eyes to what is healthy and what is not, how to heal the body, how to maintain a healthy body. And that is a whole body of information that I want to share with the world, but I've been frustrated because I haven't known how, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm passionate about this, that, and the other, but I couldn't see a path. If you want to be a doctor, there's a path. If you want to be a physiotherapist, there's a path, but I couldn't see a path that was aligned with everything that I've learned. So that's a huge challenge. It's actually one reason I'm doing this podcast, because I'm deferred from a course in nutrition that I found, no, it was not aligned with how I'm thinking. It's largely about, it's just a scaled down version of the pharmaceutical model. It's selling supplements that people don't need. It's a great profitable business model, but it's not the truth, and it's not the best way forward, in my opinion. It's not aligned with where I'm at. So that's a challenge. And so I was thinking, well, I could probably make more of a difference by starting a podcast and putting things out there, putting the information out there. So yeah, that's been a challenge. So I got my health. The challenge in actually creating this podcast was the fear of putting myself out there, the fear of coming out as me, the fear of saying, yeah, I've done this, I've done that, I've experienced this, I've experienced that, this is my opinion. I'm very open on the one-to-one, because I can judge whether that person is ready for what I'm going to say. But to put that out there for the world, for everyone to judge, that's a scary thing, as I'm sure most of us can relate. So coming out as me has been absolutely petrifying. That's been really, really hard, but I just thought, I've got to take that leap. In fact, the way I've come to think is that as this course began and I started to put this podcast together, the fear became absolutely overwhelming. I was getting sleepless nights. As the lead instructor on this course says, you feel like you're being hunted, because the level of anxiety is that high constantly. That was a real challenge. But what I came to realize is the fear doesn't go away if you turn away and do something else. That fear of doing something is always there. The only way to overcome it is to walk right up to it, face it, walk through it. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. So yeah, if I feel the fear, do it anyway, and watch the fear dissolve. So yeah, that was an enormous challenge. Trying to narrow down to subject area, because I think I've been told that that's a better way to get an audience, to gain traction, to sell the podcast. That was an enormous challenge for me because, as you can probably tell, my interests are so diverse, but I feel they all tie together, and I really didn't want to drop any of them. I didn't want to drop ancient history. I didn't want to drop consciousness. I didn't want to drop nutrition. I didn't want to drop entheogens and sacred medicines, and I didn't want to drop energy healing and whatever other subjects I'm fascinated in, or how to create a more sustainable life using renewable energy and doing less harm to the planet, and how to grow food, or whatever topic I'm fascinated in. I feel it all ties together for the purpose of making a better life, a healthier life for the individual, and a healthier life for the community, and a healthier life for the planet. So all the dots connect. The truth seeking of what's going on in the world, what people would call conspiracy theory, it all connects to the life we lead. So I didn't want to drop any of these balls, and yet I was being encouraged to find a very small niche to gain traction for the podcast. And I found that such an enormous challenge. But in the end, I thought, I'm niche enough. I've got to go with it. I've got to put something out there, and I've got to face the fear. And that was the big thing, facing the fear, putting it out there, even though it's imperfect, completely imperfect, and getting over perfectionism. That's really, really important. Because normally I'd be like, oh, if it's not right, I won't do anything. If I'm not proud of it, I won't do anything. But as someone did say to me, if I'm not embarrassed by the first podcast, then I'm moving too slow. And I think that's good. So this whole process has helped me overcome procrastination, overcome perfectionism, and just take that leap. So going forward, final question on this template. I'm being quite honest here. Most people wouldn't say they've got a template. I'm just saying it. I'm just telling it like it is. I want to be open and honest in this podcast. My ambitions for the podcast over the coming year is to have just a whole load of fascinating guests who are trying to, or have been building a life for themselves that is aligned with their purpose, that they truly believe in, that they feel they're doing good work. People who are who've worked on their own health, are helping other people with their health. People who are truth-seeking, people exploring all sorts of fascinating subjects. And I just want to get a whole range of guests in to talk about their experiences, their perspectives, and to offer a sharing to the world, sharing what they've learned and sharing how they might move forward with their lives. So, and how their experience might help you. So yeah, just to put that kind of thing out there. I've already recorded one episode. And again, it was someone with very, very different experience to my own, very, very different experience to most people. And I feel she had a lot to share, some very important things to say. And it was just a fascinating interview. It wasn't the everyday conversation that you'd have in the office. It was absolutely fascinating. That's the kind of thing I want to put out there week after week, and just create this body of work that people can dip into and just have their minds blown, have their knowledge expanded. And always I would like people to be able to take something away that can help them improve their lives. And that's all I'm going to say for today. I've really gone on and on and on and on and on and on. So yeah, that's what the podcast is all about. This is the Truth, Health, Freedom podcast. I'm Alan Burton. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm really looking forward to connecting with you over the next year and beyond. Take care. Bye-bye.